What's going on? Well, I have recently crossed the threshold of having ridden enough miles in the calendar year, which we're right now in March. So essentially, if I keep up my riding for the rest of this year like I did last year, I'll maintain my goal of having ridden the same amount of miles in a year that the United States is approximately miles wide, which is roughly 2,800 miles. And I do believe that's 2,800 just, and they say it's approximate because I guess, you know, like anything, I mean, it kind of depends where on the east and the west coast you measure. So, but that's what Google says, 2,800 miles. So, just want to kind of mention a few things. As for one, in the beginning, you know, it sounds like a whole lot. You know, you look at the number and you're like, wow, that's an impossible number. Well, I mean, yeah, I do ride what I would say is a pretty respectable amount. Obviously, there's, you know, if you go to compare yourself to others, there's always somebody who rides more than you, runs more than you, walks more than you. So we're not looking at that element. But, and I haven't looked at the, I mean, I have. To make this video, I didn't look at the Garmin data. But essentially, I ride about 20 miles on average when I ride. And I ride 4 to 5 times a week, sometimes a little bit more. But usually it's about 4 to 5 days in the week. And now, I will say this, being a heavier rider, things are gonna wear out when you're riding a bunch. You know, it's just the nature of it. But with anything, you definitely need to stay on top of the maintenance of the bike, stay on top of your health, you know, sunscreen when you ride, appropriate clothing, appropriate layers, safety gear, stuff like that. You know, if you're not taking care of yourself, it doesn't matter all the riding you do. Doesn't matter if you ride enough to cross the globe or to go from one end of the solar system to the other. It doesn't matter. You got to take care of yourself. So, but it also has been one of those things where I've learned about myself and my mental side with biking, is that if I convince myself, you know, if I'm on the fence, if I don't go ride, it's like later on you just feel bad about it. And I'm fortunate to most days have the time when the weather's nice to be able to go ride. So there's that. And some days I just don't have the time. But oftentimes, and what makes me realize with what makes me, you know, something, and it was, I was on the interstate one day and I was talking with my dad, and he had, and I was like, you know, I'm driving the speed limit, and you know, people pass you doing 80, 90 miles an hour. I'm like, man, I was talking to my dad, just make conversation. I was like, man, she'll pass him dang near blowing my doors off. And he's like, yeah, and the sad thing is, a lot of them are probably in a hurry to get home and do absolutely nothing. Some people are probably in a hurry to get to their house, but I would say he was likely right about that. There's probably a large chunk of them just in a hurry to get home to do nothing. Not get in a hurry because they need to get home. And then too, I found so many times, I'll be on the interstate and someone will pass me at some point doing, whatever. And eventually I'll catch up to them when I get into town at a red light. It's like, all you're racing down the interstate, weaving in and out of traffic, didn't really benefit you any, didn't gain you anything. Because here we are, both of us at the exact same traffic light in town. So, and it's one of those things, like, you get in a wreck with the interstate at that speed, you're probably not going to be going home at night. And chances are you're at least going to be going to the hospital and getting some x-rays and a CAT scan to check you out for injuries, just to make sure you don't have any internal trauma. I apply the same thing when I'm out here riding as on the interstate. There's plenty of times where I could stay riding on the aero bars, but look, my goal is I want to ride tomorrow. I don't care if I get on the pursuit bars or the base bar or whatever. I don't care. I'd rather do that than not make the turn sharp enough and go into the canal right there. Or anything. I'd rather ride 2 days in a row than do something that gets me injured and I can't ride for a month. I've talked to friends of mine and it's like, I just went for a ride around the block real quick. Dude, I didn't even bother with my helmet. Dude, it's one buckle. Put the helmet on. I wear my gloves in case I crash. I don't wear them for the padding. I originally didn't wear gloves for crash protection. I wore them because handlebar padding. But I'd only wear it I wouldn't wear it every time I rode, but it was brought to my attention, like, hey, you don't just wear those to cushion your hands on the handlebar. You wear them for if and when you crash, you don't take all the skin off of your hands. That's a good point. Also, with mine, I have bright green on them, so if I wave to somebody, there's like a hey, how's it going wave, but as a signal them, hey, you can go or whatever. My hand's a little more visible. And also, I believe I was reading online, I think yellows and greens are the most visible colors over a distance. So that's what I went with. That would would be what I've learned in my first time hitting the same distance as it is to cross the U.S. I'm pretty happy with myself. So anyway, I will talk with you all in the next one.